Cassie, you have to help me. Look at me. I'm a mess. The fluorescent lights in the hospital hallway flickered above as Jared's voice cracked through the sterile air. His disheveled appearance should have tugged at my heartstrings, but right now there was only one feeling: anger. Help you? Why should I help the man who broke his promises and our family? You said you'd be there for us, Jared. Guess we both know how that turned out. This is your mess to clean up. I crossed my arms, glaring at him as he lay in the hospital bed, a jumble of wires and machines attached to him. Jared's eyes widened in desperation. Cassie, please. I know I've messed up. You think? I cut him off sharply. Every word he spoke felt like a knife twisting deeper into an open wound. My voice lowered, but the anger remained. You were never there. Always too busy, too distracted. Can you even name the last time we had dinner as a family? He averted his eyes, unable to meet my gaze. That was all the answer I needed. I stormed out of the room, leaving Jared behind. Outside, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. But the memories of his neglect were too vivid. Back home, I found solace in routine. Our 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, ran to greet me, her tiny arms wrapping around my legs. Mom, you're home. Yes, sweetheart, I replied, lifting her into my arms and kissing her cheek. Scout, our faithful golden retriever, wagged his tail furiously, sensing the tension but offering silent support. How was your day? Good. Sarah took me to the park and we played with Scout. Can we do it again tomorrow? Her innocent excitement brought a bittersweet smile to my face. We'll see, Ellie, we'll see. My mind, however, was far from the park. It was still replaying the strained scene at the hospital. Later that night, I tucked Ellie into bed and sat down with a glass of wine. The house felt eerily empty without Jared's presence, but it had been like this for years. His career at the tech startup had consumed every part of him, leaving us with barely fragments of his time. The ringing phone interrupted my thoughts. Sarah's familiar voice greeted me on the other end. Hey, Cassie, how are you holding up? Not great, Sarah. You know, the usual. He's in the hospital now. What happened? She asked, concern etched in every word. Car accident, but it's not just that, it's everything. Years of neglect, empty promises. I'm done, Sarah. Cassie, she said gently, I know it's hard, but maybe this is a wake-up call for him? Wake-up call, I scoffed. He's had plenty of those. This is just another empty plea for sympathy. We chatted for a few more minutes before I hung up. Sarah had always been my rock, the one constant in my tumultuous life with Jared. But even she couldn't erase the pain that had been accumulating for years. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying Jared's pleading eyes. He had made his choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. The sleep that followed was anything but restful. My dreams were haunted by images of broken promises and lost time, but as dawn's light crept through the curtains, a new resolve settled over me. This was my life, my chance to reclaim what had been lost to Jared's indifference. I got out of bed with a sense of purpose. Today I would start to pick up the pieces, build something new, something better, for Ellie and for myself. With Scout by my side and Ellie's laughter as my guiding light, I knew I had the strength to face whatever lies ahead. I woke up with an unfamiliar determination. Today wasn't just another day surviving Jared's neglect. Today was different. Ellie sat at the breakfast table, her chubby fingers pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. Can Sarah take me to the park again? She asked, lifting her big, hopeful eyes to mine. Before I could reply, the phone rang. It was Sarah. Morning, Cassie. How are you feeling today? Her voice was warm, but there was an underlying tension I couldn't quite place. I'm fine, Sarah. Just trying to hold things together for Ellie, I said, watching my daughter smile with contentment over her breakfast, oblivious to the storm raging in my mind. Want to get some coffee later? I'll take Ellie with me to the park so you can have a breather, she suggested. Part of me wanted to say no. I didn't want to dump my problems on her again, but right now I desperately needed the support. Sure, that sounds good. Later at the cafe, the smell of freshly brewed coffee provided a brief respite from my chaotic thoughts. I can't keep doing this, Sarah, I blurted out as soon as we sat down. Jared's made it clear where his priorities lie, and it's not with us. I absently stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking against the porcelain cup. Sarah nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. I know it's hard, Cassie, but maybe things can change. Maybe this accident is what he needed to snap out of it. Sarah, he's had more chances than anyone deserves. I've sacrificed enough for his career, his dreams. What about mine? My voice cracked, the weight of my sacrifice finally surfacing. Sarah reached over, squeezing my hand. I get it. I really do. You gave up your law career, your independence. Anyone would be resentful. My thoughts flickered to my suburban upbringing. My parents had always been supportive, pushing me to follow my dreams. When I met Jared in college, he was full of ambition, and I was drawn to his drive. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself in his shadow. I used to be so independent, so sure of myself, I said quietly. Now I'm just Jared's wife, Ellie's mom. I miss who I was. Sarah's eyes were sympathetic. It's not too late to find her again. You're stronger than you think, Cassie. As we walked back home, I watched Sarah with Ellie. They were laughing together, Scout happily trotting alongside. They looked so carefree, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. Was it possible that Sarah knew more about Jared's actions than she let on? When we arrived home, I excused myself, saying I needed a moment to think. Alone in the quiet of my bedroom, I felt the familiar sense of bitterness gnawing at my heart. Jared had taken so much from me, my career, my self-worth, my trust. That night, as I tucked Ellie into bed, she gave me a hug so tight it almost broke my heart. Mom, can we have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? Of course, sweetheart, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. You and me, pancakes tomorrow morning. As I lay in bed, listening to the soft hum of the house, a new resolve settled over me. No more waiting for Jared to change. No more clinging to a life that no longer existed. It was time to reclaim my future, to rebuild my life from the ground up. With Sarah pushing me along and Ellie's laughter guiding me, I could see a new path forming. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever was, and this was my battle to win. Ellie was bouncing with excitement, tugging at my hand. Mom, are we still going to the zoo today? You promised. I forced a smile. Of course, sweetheart. Just let me call your dad and confirm. But deep down, I had a sinking feeling. Dialing Jared's number, I felt the usual knot tighten in my stomach. He picked up after the fourth ring, sounding distracted. Cassie, what's up? I'm in a meeting. Jared, we're supposed to go to the zoo today. Ellie's been looking forward to it all week. There was a pause, and then the dreaded words came. I can't make it. There's an emergency at work. I'm really sorry. I felt the anger boiling inside me. You promised, Jared, again. I know. But I really can't help it this time. We'll go another day, I swear. I hung up without another word. Ellie's face fell when she saw my expression. Is Daddy not coming? I knelt down to her level, trying to keep my voice steady. No, honey. Daddy has to work. But don't worry, we'll have a great time, just you and me. We ended up having a fun day at the zoo, but Jared's absence was a dark cloud over the outing. When we got home, I noticed something unusual. Jared's car was in the driveway. Confused and a bit suspicious, I walked into the house. Jared was on the couch with his laptop, typing away. You're home? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, the meeting got moved online, he said without looking up. How was the zoo? It was fine, I replied, but I felt a pang of frustration. He could have come with us. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, the doubts started creeping in. Jared's late nights, the constant meetings, the lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume on his clothes. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I called Sarah, needing to talk things out. Sarah, I think Jared is hiding something from me. He's been so distant, and it's not just about work. You're overthinking it, Cassie, she replied casually. He's busy with the startup, but if you really think something's up, maybe you should talk to him. It feels like there's more to it. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I need to know the truth. Sarah hesitated. Look, I know you've been through a lot, but maybe he's just overwhelmed. Give him a chance to explain. Maybe you're right, I said, though I wasn't convinced. Thanks, Sarah. I'll talk to him. But the conversation only deepened my resolve. I needed answers. The next day, while Jared was at work, I decided to take a closer look at his things. In the closet, there it was, a small, expensive perfume bottle, definitely not mine. When Jared got home, I confronted him. Jared, what's this? I held up the perfume bottle. He looked taken aback. It's a client gift. There's nothing to worry about. But his hesitation spoke volumes. A client gift? Really, Jared? Why was it hidden in your suitcase? Cassie, it's not what you think. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said defensively. I don't believe you, I replied, my voice icy. We're not done with this conversation. As the days passed, my suspicions only grew. I decided to take matters into my own hands and hired a private investigator. I needed the truth, and I wasn't going to let Jared's lies hold me back any longer. When the investigator called with initial findings, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. Jared's been meeting with a woman at odd hours, he said. My heart sank, but I thanked him and hung up. Jared's facade was starting to crumble, and I was determined to uncover every piece. This was only the beginning. I stared at the investigator's email, my hands trembling. Jared was definitely meeting a woman at odd hours. The investigator had sent pictures, grainy but clear enough. In every photo, they were too close, too comfortable for it to be purely professional. When Jared got home that evening, I couldn't mask my anger. We need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. What's wrong now? He asked, sounding more irritated than concerned. I took a deep breath and held out the printouts of the photos. Who is she, Jared? I deserve the truth. He glanced at the photos and then back at me, his face paling. Cassie, it's not what it looks like. Stop lying to me, I shouted, the hurt and betrayal boiling over. This isn't something I can just overlook. You've been meeting her, lying to my face, making me think I was paranoid. Okay, he said, raising his hands defensively. Her name is Melissa. She's a business associate. Yes, we've met a few times outside of work, but it's nothing serious. Nothing serious, I repeated, my voice trembling. Then why lie about it? Why hide it from me? Jared sighed. Because I knew you'd react like this. You're always doubting me, always thinking the worst. His words stung. I wanted to throw the photos at him, but opted to take a step back instead. If there's nothing serious, I want you to cut all ties with her. Now. He hesitated for a moment too long. Cassie, I can't just cut off business relationships like that. This is my job, my career. It was our family first, I snapped, my voice breaking slightly. You've already pushed us aside again and again. Now this? Jared sneered. Maybe if you weren't so focused on what I'm doing wrong, you'd see how much I do for this family. I bust my ass at work to give us a good life, and this is the thanks I get? I clenched my fists, the anger bubbling up again. A good life? You mean a life where Ellie barely knows her father, and I'm left to clean up after all your broken promises? Enough, Cassie, Jared shouted. I'm tired of this constant nagging. I can't deal with your insecurities on top of everything else. He stormed out, leaving me standing there, shaking with anger and hurt. His words echoed in my mind, but I knew I couldn't let them weaken my resolve. Early the next morning, I called Sarah. Can you come over? I need to talk. She arrived within the hour, concern etched on her face. What happened? I showed her the photos. He's been seeing someone else, Sarah. I'm done. I can't keep pretending everything's okay. Sarah's face paled slightly, but she quickly recovered. Cassie, I'm so sorry. I wish there was something I could do. There is, I said, my voice steely. Help me with Ellie. I need to figure out my next steps, and I can't do it alone. She nodded. Of course. Whatever you need. After she left, I sat down at the kitchen table, my mind racing. Jared had underestimated me, but that was going to change. I wasn't the clueless wife he thought I was. Later that day, I met with the private investigator. I need more evidence, something undeniable, I said. I need to know everything. The investigator nodded. I'll take care of it. In the meantime, I started to gather my own proofs. I dug through Jared's things, looking for anything that could give me more leverage. And then I found it. Another perfume bottle, hidden in his desk drawer, this one even more expensive and clearly used. My suspicions solidified into certainty. Jared was having an affair, and my so-called best friend had been keeping secrets from me as well. I felt the sting of betrayal deepening, but it also fueled my determination. As I tucked Ellie into bed that night, she looked up at me with those trusting eyes. Mom, everything okay? I smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. Yes, sweetheart, everything's going to be just fine. But inside, I knew it was far from over. The truth was out, and it was only a matter of time before both Jared and Sarah faced the consequences of their betrayals. The private investigator handed me an envelope filled with photos and documents. Mrs. McAllister, this is the proof you asked for. I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. The contents confirmed my worst fears. Jared's affair wasn't just a fling, it had been ongoing for months. And the woman? Sarah. My hands trembled as I flipped through the photos. Jared and Sarah, laughing at a restaurant, holding hands at the park, even checking into a hotel together. The betrayal felt like a stab in the heart, but it also ignited a fire of determination. "Thank you," I said to the investigator. "This is exactly what I needed." That night, I waited for Jared to get home. The moment he walked through the door, I confronted him. "Jared, we need to talk. Now." He looked annoyed. "Can it wait? I've had a long day." "No, it can't." I threw the photos on the coffee table. "Explain these." Jared's face went pale as he stared at the evidence. "Cassie, it's not what it looks like." "Don't lie to me," I shouted. "You've been cheating on me with Sarah. How could you?" Jared took a step back, and then his face twisted into anger. "So what if I have? You've been so damn self-righteous, always nagging. Sarah understands me, unlike you." "You're blaming me?" I felt the fury rise. "Do you realize what you've done to our family?" "Our family?" Jared sneered. "You mean the family I support while you sit around playing the victim?" I was done. "That's it. I want a divorce, Jared. I've already started the paperwork. You're not taking another day of my life." He laughed bitterly. "Good luck with that. You think you can just kick me out? I've worked too hard for what we have." "We'll see about that," I said coldly. "And don't think for a second that I'll let you take Ellie from me." As Jared stormed out of the house, I picked up my phone and called Sarah. "We need to talk. Now." She sounded hesitant but agreed to come over. When she arrived, she looked nervous. "Cassie, what's going on?" I thrust the photos at her. "Care to explain?" Sarah's face turned white. "Cassie, Save it," I snapped. "How could you do this to me? You were my best friend." "Cassie, I didn't mean for this to happen," she pleaded. "I was lonely, and Jared, he was there. Spare me the excuses," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "You betrayed me, and I won't forget that." "I'm sorry," she said weakly. "I really am. Sorry's not good enough, Sarah. I've already filed for divorce, and Jared will be out of here soon. But you're dead to me." With that, I slammed the door in her face, tears streaming down my cheeks. The emotional weight was almost too much, but I knew I had to stay strong for Ellie. The next few days were a blur of legal meetings and painful conversations. I confided in my parents, who were beyond supportive. "You're doing the right thing, Cassie," my mom said, hugging me tightly. "We're here for you always." I met with my lawyer, laying out the evidence of Jared's infidelity. "I want full custody of Ellie," I insisted. "He doesn't deserve to be in her life." "We'll fight for that," the lawyer assured me. "And with the evidence you have, you stand a strong chance." As the days turned into weeks, I began to set the pieces of my new life in order. I enrolled in online courses to get back into law, something I'd put on hold for Jared. With my parents' help, I managed to create a stable, loving environment for Ellie. Jared moved out after the hearing, his arrogance finally tempered by the reality of his situation. Sarah, ostracized by our mutual friends, faded into the background of my life, a painful chapter I was determined to close. One evening, as I watched Ellie play in the garden, I felt a sense of peace. I'd faced betrayal and heartbreak, but I'd emerged stronger. This wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. The day of the confrontation arrived. I arranged a gathering at our house, inviting Jared and Sarah over under the pretense of discussing logistical arrangements following the divorce. It was perfect. They would least expect it there. Jared arrived first, looking annoyed. "What's this about, Cassie?" "Just wait," I replied curtly. Moments later, Sarah walked in. The air instantly grew thicker with tension. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, her voice wavering slightly. I took a deep breath, holding back my seething anger. "We're going to settle this once and for all." I pulled out the photos and documents, spreading them out on the table. "Here's your explanation. Both of you, my husband, my so-called best friend, cheating behind my back." Jared looked stunned, but quickly masked it with indignation. "This is ridiculous." "Is it?" I snapped. "All these meetings, late nights, the perfume. You underestimated me, Jared." Sarah, on the other hand, looked defeated. She avoided my eyes, her hands trembling. "Cassie, I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" I echoed, my voice dripping with contempt. "Sorry doesn't cut it. You betrayed me in the worst way possible." Jared scoffed. "So what's your plan here? Embarrass us so you can feel better?" "No." I said calmly, almost too calmly. "I'm here to make sure there's no denying what you've done, for the record, for the court, and for our daughter." Jared's face turned crimson with rage. You think you can use this against me? I'll fight you in court. You'll regret this, Cassie. I held my ground. I've already filed for divorce and secured a lawyer. You won't take Ellie from me, ever. Sarah's eyes finally met mine, filled with guilt. Cassie, please. I never wanted this. It just happened. Things like this don't just happen, Sarah. You made a choice. I turned to Jared, my voice icy. Both of you did. Jared, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried a different tactic. Cassie, think about Ellie. Do you want her to grow up with parents who are at each other's throats? I want Ellie to grow up knowing her mother stood up for herself, rather than staying in a toxic marriage. I motioned to the door. Now get out, both of you. They stumbled to the door, the shock of my resolve evident on their faces. As they left, the emotional weight finally lifted from my shoulders. This was the first step toward reclaiming my life, and Ellie's. The following days were filled with legal procedures, but I remained unwavering. Jared tried to paint me as the unreasonable party, but with the evidence we had, his efforts fell flat. I won full custody of Ellie, and Jared was forced to move out, leaving me with the house. On the day the court finalized our divorce, I felt a wave of relief. I had done it. Ellie and I could finally start anew. Jared's career took a hit next. I tipped off his company about his affair. They didn't take kindly to the scandal, especially given the public nature of our legal battle. He was dismissed within the week. Sarah didn't escape unscathed either. Our mutual friends, now aware of her betrayal, distanced themselves, leaving her isolated. Her relationship with Jared crumbled under the strain, and both of them faced the fallout of their actions. One evening, as Ellie and I packed our things, preparing to move back to my hometown, she looked up at me and smiled. Mom, are we going on an adventure? Yes, sweetheart, I said, hugging her tightly. A new adventure for both of us. As we drove away from the past, a murmured conversation from Ellie in the back seat filled the car. I glanced at her through the rearview mirror, her face glowing with excitement about our future. It was a reminder of why I went through all the pain and struggle. For her. For us. We arrived at my parents' place, where they welcomed us with open arms. I took a deep breath, feeling the support and love that had been missing for so long. It was the start of a new chapter, one we would write together, filled with love, strength, and unwavering determination. Jared showed up at the house unexpectedly one evening. His face was haggard, and there was a desperate glint in his eyes. Cassie, we need to talk, he said, blocking the doorway. There's nothing left to say, Jared, I replied, keeping my voice steady. I glanced over my shoulder at Ellie, who was busy coloring at the kitchen table. I lost my job because of you, he spat, stepping closer. You had to get involved, didn't you? I didn't get you fired, Jared. Your actions did that. You put yourself in this mess. Don't you get it? He said, his voice rising. You're ruining everything. I've got nothing now. No job, no family. I furrowed my brow, unwilling to back down. You had a family. You threw that away when you cheated on me. He threw up his hands in exasperation. So this is revenge? You're just satisfied making my life hell? It's about consequences, Jared. Something you've avoided your whole life. He crossed his arms, glaring at me. You might think you've won, but this isn't over. I looked him square in the eye. Yes, it is, Jared. Now leave. Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, Jared turned and walked away, slamming the door behind him. I hugged Ellie and tried to shake off the encounter, knowing there was more to focus on. The next part of my plan was crucial. I contacted our mutual friends, making sure they knew exactly what had transpired. Photos, messages, everything. I exposed Jared and Sarah's deceit to the world. The fallout was immediate. Our once close-knit friend group turned on Jared, shunning him. Sarah faced equally harsh scrutiny. Her social circles crumbled, and the isolation she felt was evident. I took things a step further by posting the affair details on social media. It wasn't about public humiliation, it was about ensuring everyone knew the truth. The community's reaction was swift and unsympathetic. Their lives, once intertwined with lies, now unraveled publicly. One afternoon, I received a call from Jared's former boss. Cassie, it's Mark. I heard about everything. Losing his job wasn't your fault. Jared made poor choices. Our firm doesn't tolerate such behavior. I appreciate that, Mark, I replied, my voice steady. I just wanted you to know the real story. Thank you, he said. It's clear now. With Jared losing his financial security, I presented him with the settlement agreement. He was in no position to fight back. The agreement stripped him of significant assets, ensuring Ellie and I were well taken care of. When he saw the papers, his eyes widened. This is everything. You're taking everything from me. You took everything from me when you betrayed us, I said, my voice resolute. Sign it, Jared. It's the least you owe. With no other options, he signed. It was done. Jared moved out, leaving behind nothing but the hollow shell of his former arrogance. As the days passed, I focused on rebuilding. My parents' support never wavered. They helped take care of Ellie while I started studying again, determined to regain my career in law. I spent evenings with Ellie, who was adapting well to the changes. We explored the local park, baked cookies, and created new routines. Every laugh, every small victory was a step toward healing. One sunny afternoon, we hosted a small picnic with my parents. Ellie, her face smeared with chocolate, looked up at me and beamed. Mom, this is the best day ever. In that moment, surrounded by family and love, I realized how far we'd come. The betrayal and hurt were slowly being replaced by joy and hope. Ellie's smile was proof that the worst was behind us and only better days lay ahead. As we packed up the picnic, I looked at my daughter and thought, yes, sweetheart, the best is yet to come. Ellie and I settled into our new life with a surprising ease. My parents' home, though filled with nostalgia, became a place of healing and new beginnings. Every morning I walked Ellie to her new school, the smile on her face confirming that this move had been the right choice. One day, as I picked her up from school, she tugged on my hand. Mom, can we visit Grandma and Grandpa after school? Of course, sweetie. They'd love that. We headed home, the warm afternoon sun casting a comforting glow on us. When we arrived, my mom was in the kitchen, kneading dough for her famous apple pie. There's my girl, she exclaimed, enveloping Ellie in a flowery hug. Dinner will be ready in an hour, Cassie, my dad called from the living room, where he was setting up a board game Ellie loved. The normalcy of it all filled me with a contentment I hadn't felt in years. That evening, after Ellie was asleep, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down with my mom. Ellie's adapting so well, I said, feeling a sense of relief. And so are you, my mom replied, a knowing look in her eyes. You've been through a lot, but you're rediscovering yourself, Cassie. I think so, I said, feeling a touch of pride. I've started my law courses again. It feels good to do something for myself. This is your time, honey. You're stronger than you know, she said, squeezing my hand. Days turned into weeks, and the pieces of our new life began to fit together effortlessly. My studies kept me busy, but I always made time for Ellie, who continued to flourish. One afternoon, while I was working on a case study, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a mutual friend, Lisa. Jared's struggling. He lost the apartment, and Sarah moved out, the message read. Thought you'd want to know. I stared at the screen, feeling an unexpected mix of emotions. I walked over to the door, calling out for my mom. Can you watch Ellie for a bit? I need to take a walk. The evening air was crisp as I walked, my thoughts swirling. Jared's downfall had been swift and merciless. He had lost everything because of his own decisions. As I walked, I felt a strange sense of closure. That weekend, Ellie and I set up a small garden in my parents' backyard. Digging in the soil, planting seeds, and watching Ellie's excitement grow made me realize something important. This garden, much like our lives, was a new beginning. Ellie looked up, dirt smudged on her cheeks. Mom, can my flowers be pink? Of course, sweetheart, I said, smiling. We can plant all the pink flowers you want. As the flowers bloomed, so did my confidence. I began volunteering at a local legal aid clinic, helping single mothers navigate the complexities of custody and divorce. It was fulfilling work, and I felt a deep connection to the women I was helping. One evening, I sat down with Ellie, who was drawing at the kitchen table. What you working on, Ellie? It's a picture of my new school, she said proudly. And here's you. And me, and Scout. Her innocence and joy were contagious. That's beautiful, Ellie, I said, kissing her forehead. You're so talented. As the months passed, our new life took shape. There were challenges, but also triumphs. My studies were progressing well, and I felt more at peace with each passing day. Jared's presence faded into the background. He reached out once, asking for a chance to see Ellie, but I refused. Not yet, I told him. You need to work on yourself first. One sunny afternoon, Ellie and I were at a local fair. She was riding the carousel, her laughter filling the air. I watched her, my heart swelling with pride and love. When the ride ended, she ran over to me, breathless and beaming. "Mom, this is the best day ever." I scooped her up, twirling her around. "Every day with you is the best day, Ellie." As we walked home, hand in hand, I knew our journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to the future with a sense of hope and excitement. We had built something beautiful out of the wreckage, and that was more than enough.